Well, we often report on Measure 110 decriminalizing hard drugs, but that's not all it does. A significant portion of Measure 110 is reshaping Oregon's future with cannabis revenue.
By putting hundreds of millions of dollars into recovery treatment, Elise Haas continues our series, Breaking the Cycle, Oregon's Attempt at Recovery. And this is fascinating, Elise. You got to look inside some of these facilities.
Right, because it is so easy to see all of the problems playing out publicly on our streets. So I wanted to find out what's going on behind closed doors as brand new Measure 110 funded recovery centers have just started opening. At 22 years old, the path wasn't easy for Jaden McCartney.
I've just been kind of going through a rough patch in my life.
He didn't have positive ways to cope. As he struggled with alcohol and cannabis, life became unmanageable. Many nights, he wasn't sure where he'd stay. Sometimes, he'd end up sleeping on the streets. What was that like for you?
It was really hard trying to juggle life things and stay on track at the same time. It's a big burden and a weight on my shoulders. But now that I have this place, it's a lot easier to manage my life.
This place is called Bridges to Change. With Measure 110 money, in August, this organization opened a new stabilization center in West Linn.
So M110 was able to fill the gap for stabilization services. It's a really flexible funding model that allows us to build programs like this.
Meet Monica Knutson, the executive director. His organization provides addiction and mental health treatment with both supportive housing and outpatient services in Washington, Clackamas, Multnomah, and Wasco counties. With the help of Measure 110, Knutson is working to add nearly 240 more beds, including at 2 brand new housing developments. One is going to be a permanent supportive housing complex in Portland on Southeast 83rd and Foster. The other will be a multifamily complex in Gresham.
M110 allowed us to purchase the land for those properties, and then we're using other funding sources like low-income tax credits, permanent supportive housing dollars to actually build those sites. But M110 got our foot in the door to start housing development.
But Bridges to Change is not the only organization expanding.
There are a lot of new service providers that are just coming online, all thanks to Measure 110.
Joe Bezegi helps run Recovery Works Northwest. He gave us a tour of the new Measure 110 funded withdrawal management facility in Southeast Portland. This opened in September. Previously in Portland, thousands of people were turned away from detox centers a year because they didn't have room.
It's been a significant bottleneck.
Before Measure 110, there were 90 detox beds in Portland. Now there are 106. With 16 more beds and an average stay of 3 to 5 days, Recovery Works Northwest can help detox 1,200 people a year. This is an 18% increase in Portland's detox capacity. And there's more.
We've already opened a fully integrated outpatient clinic serving Newburgh. We have another outpatient clinic coming online later this year in Milwaukee. Those are all services that would not have been possible without support from Measure 110.
Recovery Works Northwest's Newburgh location will serve hundreds of people on any given day, fulfilling a great need in Yamhill County.
So the build had its hiccups, it had its challenges, but now we have a sustainable means of funding services using cannabis tax revenues that is freely available, evidence-based, low barrier services supporting the healing and recovery from dangerous addictions. So we're going to see a lot more services coming online.
This map shows more than 240 Measure 110 funded locations, offering peer support, drop-in services, or new detox centers in Oregon. According to the Oregon Health Authority, so far, Measure 110 has treated more than 15,000 patients for addiction. But what the numbers don't show yet is how many of those are the same person. At this point, most of the tax money has gone to increasing staffing and building new recovery centers in Oregon, followed by spending on services and supplies and administration. As time goes on, construction costs will go down.
This is a new program, and while it's had a rocky start, it's now showing some extraordinarily promising returns to our taxpayers in the state.
We want to remove those barriers, and we want
Back at Bridges to Change, Monta says his focus is to increase access to stabilization houses like this one.
in the next 30, 60 days, we'll be to capacity.
At this new recovery center, men will usually stay for about 3 months, then get connected to more long-term housing. This means people in recovery, like Jaden, can rest assured.
So this place offers a lot of stability, and I know I have somewhere to put my head every night.
Because with stability, Jaden now also has sobriety.
I have a lot of clarity, being sober and stuff. It helps me like think clear-minded and stuff, and really sharp and just quick and witty.
Within a week's stay, he was back on his feet with a new job.
They've helped impact my life for the better. The mentors here are amazing. They offer a lot of motivation and support, and they go above and beyond for trying to help motivate us and to get our life in gear. After this, I hope to only go up from here, and just good things.
Jaden says the only direction he's moving in is forward.
And this is just a slice of some of the new programs that are now available for addiction. You can read about many more within my article at KOIN.com.
It was back in February where you were part of the town hall. Liz was part of it, where we talked about Oregon's state of pain, the drug crisis. We had no good news about Measure 110. That was 9 months ago. I think it would be a much different show if we had it right here in the studio tonight.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I will say, there are two parts to Measure 110, one of which is more controversial, being the decriminalization of hard drugs and then giving out citations to drug users instead. And even Measure 110 supporters will admit that that ticketing system isn't working to engage people. But we are now seeing how expanding access to treatment definitely is, as thousands are reportedly seeking out addiction services directly. But one thing is important to understand is that some of the most visible people out on the streets, who citizens are understandably frustrated about, oftentimes don't just have addiction, but they also have mental illness or in a drug-induced psychosis. And that group of people, they are the ones who need the state to stand up secure residential treatment facilities separate from Measure 110 that don't currently exist.
Yeah, that's a whole nother point too. Like, this is not one solution for everybody. And I will say from your story, what does stand out is just highlighting that we know it's a big issue here in Portland and Multnomah County. We can see how statewide some of the efforts, we talked about recovery centers popping up in Yamhill County as well.
Yes, great need there.
Newburgh and Milwaukee. So just a reminder that this is widespread.
Yeah.
All right. Elise, thank you. Of course, there is so much more. Keep in mind, Measure 110, we're asking, is it meeting voters' expectations? Now, some Oregonians do want changes mandating treatment. In Elise's upcoming report, she asked the question to decriminalize or recriminalize hard drugs. So be sure to stay tuned next Wednesday, another special report at 5 p.m. for a balanced debate.
Elise